we'll open up the Q&A session by introducing you to Fiona Lloyd-Davies, who is the director, producer, filmmaker of Seeds of Hope. So Fiona, that was quite a lot to take in, quite powerful, very beautiful film. And what led you to the Congo and to Masika? What led you to making this film?
Well, thank you all very much for coming here tonight, and I know it's a difficult film to watch, but thank you for sticking with it, because I still think it's we all know it's still a very, very important issue and something that continues to happen in Congo, Eastern Congo, all the time. It was took a long time to make this film. I first went to Eastern Congo in October 2001. I'd made a film about honour killing in Pakistan, and after 9/11 I wanted to go to Pakistan and then to Afghanistan, but I was denied a visa because of the honour killing film, and I looked for another story, and I talked to Médecins Sans Frontières, the emergency medical charity, and they told me that I had to go to Eastern Congo, that there was an epidemic of rape, they called it, that was being totally unreported. So I went with them. It was the height of the war, and they'd only just sent a team back to a place called Shabunda, which is in the middle of the forest. You can only get there by plane, and I went there for a week. The plane landed on a little grass airstrip and then took off again, which left me slightly apprehensive that he might not come back for us. But I spent that week talking to women and their stories. Even having worked in Bosnia during the war, where rape was used as a war crime very widely there, the stories of brutality and the violence against women that was being experienced by these women in Shabunda was really terrifying. And Médecins Sans Frontières estimated that between 50 and 70% of women were being raped. And they were faced with a terrible, impossible choice, either to stay at home and starve, or go out to the fields to find food, where they were being raped on a regular basis. And of course, for them there was no choice, because they had to go out to find food for their children. So having spent that time in Shabunda in 2001, I felt very strongly that this was a story, these women's stories had to be told, and I continued to go back. It took a long time to get broadcasters to take this story, because really at that time of the war on terror, everything was focused on that area. And then after some time, not until 2009, I met Masika herself. I was making a film for the BBC, and I spent a day filming with her, as well as some time getting to know her story and talking to her. And I realised that this was a really extraordinary woman whose story should be told. So after some time I got a commission from Al Jazeera English, made a short film, and then in 2013 received a grant and support from the Masika Centre on Crisis Reporting in the US. And with their assistance I've made this longer feature-length documentary.
Okay, there are like 50 questions that I could ask you now myself, so it's the second time I've watched it now. So I guess I need to open up to the audience. So all I will ask is that you keep questions short and to the point, just out of respect to everyone else. I'm sure many people have questions and we don't have much time. So Matt has the roaming microphone, so I don't know who has a question. Does anyone? So Alex.
Hi. It's fine, I don't need a point. I'm loud enough. What's the update on Stevie and his mother?
I talked to Masika on Skype yesterday, and also I was in Congo, Eastern Congo, in February of this year. They're still struggling with how to tell Stevie, because they don't feel he's ready for that yet. He's now at secondary school, he's about 14 years old, and you know, he's growing up. There are 78 children now at the centre, so it's a huge family of children. I think in a way more of an issue is Rachel. She was attacked and raped again. The details of the story aren't completely clear, but when she was attacked, her hand was cut and I think the tendons were severed. And the fact that she can't wash Stevie's clothes very well, she's lost the use of one of her hands, has, when I saw her in February, she'd really sort of plunged, into depression. And I think a charity who is working with them now is going to try and do something to help Rachel. I think she needs some surgery on her hand if that's possible. So it's an ongoing issue, but the issue of what happens to these boys especially is a very, very difficult conundrum that hasn't really been addressed at all. And in fact, I think I'm hoping that I'm going to receive funding from Al Jazeera to make a follow-up film which will be about this and will be about Stevie and the other boys at the centre, as well as the girls, about what their future holds for them and what their stories are.
Yes, the lady at the back, if you want to say thank you.
Do you think that there's any way that these women can protect themselves properly in the future?
I mean, I think, I think maybe, I don't know, that's such a big question because of the political situation, so maybe I'll pass the mic over to Charlotte.
Yes, it's very difficult for these women to protect themselves. First of all, because the impunity. And I think if those who rape were very well known among the government people, among the soldiers, they know them. But as I know, they have a mission to do that. So once you've done your work, that's how they call it, you can't get touched. So I think if we all come together, like we are here tonight, and start, a campaign of denouncing, because these are for the big companies who are making a lot of money out of it. So, no, there's no way those women can defend themselves.
Can I just also say I do also think that there's a really big crisis of governance in Congo, and one of the biggest concerns is who's going to be the next elected as president in 2016. The current president clearly is incapable of governing the Congo, and I think the northeast of the Congo is a testament to that. I think that there has to be a clearer communication about the fact that Congo is at war with Rwanda. I think that that's not clear enough in our media, and that's not just understood internationally. And I think until those two issues are approached, i.e. who is Congo at war with, I think so many times we talk about a war in Congo. I know when I started TG Foundation, our governments and a lot of other European governments and the American government would talk about Congo and call it a civil war. And so obviously I studied politics, so I started to analyse the situation in the Congo, and I realised there's no civil war. A civil war is what happened during the Arab Spring. There are no Congolese civilians rising up and going at war with the government, so there's no civil war. And over the last few years I've seen that shift over, and now it's just called a war. But I think that the next stage for the communication and PR message definitely needs to be that Congo is clearly at war with Rwanda, whether that's because the current Rwandan government is directly at war with Congo or because it's funding rebel groups who are in Congo, but Congo is at war with Rwanda. And Congo desperately is in need of a better president, a better government, but that really can't, I'm a great believer that if you can't get your house in order and your own affairs in order if there's constant outside interference. So it's a really catch-22 situation, and until both issues are balanced out, there's no real route for these women to be protected. I mean, MONUSCO, which is the largest UN peacekeeping force in Congo, has been unable to protect these women for nearly 20 years. So clearly even international peacekeeping efforts have failed. And I think, my mother was saying the other day, she made a really good point when, after watching your documentary, she said something that I found really profound. I said, we really need a new president. She said, yes. She said, but we can't. And my mother has suggested a transitional government. And she just, after watching your documentary, Mom just said, the situation has gotten to a point, we just need to stop and rewind. And the only way to do that is to have a transitional president and a transitional government. And, our ideal candidate would be Dr. Denis Mukwege, because we really think he's earned the right to lead the Congolese people, and diplomatically we've watched him operate at the summit. I mean, all 4 of us were at the summit, and it was just amazing to see how diplomatically how the doctor was just so well received by ministers, so well respected, able to liaise with ministers of all different levels. So I think for me, that's really, I don't know if anyone else sees another viable. I think if that could happen, if by 2016 we could have a transitional government, I haven't heard anyone offer a better solution. Then the women would have a chance, I think. Man at the back there.
I take courage to say that well done for bringing the issue, the effort you've taken, well done to you. I'll take this opportunity to say thank you to you, Mama Congo, Marsh, and the group. I have a couple of issues. This is the beginning to make the world understand what is going on in Congo and in Africa. This is a representation of what is going on in some parts of Africa. The rape or the rapes which are going on are actually more than physical rape. Africans, Congo in particular is an example where economically it's being raped. Big companies are involved, corrupt leaders are involved. Revenge in Africa is being used by other peoples outside Africa. The number of people who have died in that part of the world are more than 5 times those who died in Rwanda, but nobody talks about them. Where are all the Hutus who walked, the innocent Hutus who were not soldiers, who walked away from Rwanda to Congo? They're being wiped out. And we're told that Congo is at war. I can go on and on. The other point which I want to raise is we need to see more Africans taking lead, but we're seated doing nothing, or we're seated doing a lot of the talk. We have failed Africa, some of us. We should be there with you to explore more massacres. There is a fundamental...
Okay, sorry, I'm just conscious of time, and there are other people with questions,
one point.
Could you just, just
there's a
consider it to everyone else?
There's a fundamental mismatch about the ideology of what we see. What we see, what you've shown, are symptoms. We have leaders around that Congo who are conspired and are supported. We see big ministers from different countries going to Rwanda and praising it, going to Uganda, that they've done what so well economically. But they're the countries which are sending soldiers to Congo, to destabilize Congo.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Does anyone? Oh, this lady here had her hand up first, so and then the lady in the second row afterwards. Maybe we'll take the two questions at the same time, Matt. So this lady first, and then that lady, so we can do two questions in one.
Yeah, thank you so much for this, Phil. It was just a question. Several of the women spoke about the need for justice, and I just wondered, nationally, are there groups that are developing and there's strong, activists, especially other women in the judiciary system, trying to tackle this issue? And then internationally, are there groups who are trying to support these initiatives, and what kind of progress are they making?
And this lady, will you go, Rita? Yes.
The answer is yes, in a limited sense, and there are quite a lot of ways to answer this question, which I'm sure the others can contribute to as well. There are amazingly brave women and male lawyers in Eastern Congo who took part, for instance, in the Minova trial that happened this year, where 39 soldiers and officers were tried for the rapes in Minova. Unfortunately, internationally, there's also been the Prevention of Sexual Violence Initiative led by William Hague and Angelina Jolie that had the summit in June. And for me, I feel that was a really missed opportunity, that this initiative, we're told, has 70 experts, forensic investigators and lawyers who are ready to be deployed to areas to assist them. And it was a completely missed opportunity. And if one is to take William Hague's initiative seriously, we need to ask him and the office why this wasn't done, because the trial was very flawed, and although it was important that it happened, the fact that only 2 men were found guilty of rape as a war crime is a very good example of where a lot of help is needed. That the defence lawyers, for instance, only one had any experience in court before. Many of them had no money to photocopy or make copies of their clients' case papers. And I know I made a film for Newsnight about the trial, and one of the women prosecutor lawyers had a number of death threats against her for being part of the prosecution. So, there were huge problems with that, and many people felt that wrong people were being tried and that those at a very senior level were not being tried. Having said that, there are increasing number of trials, and there are lots of flaws. The judiciary is very, very fragile and needs a lot of support, and that is something that hopefully post-summit the world and the international community is taking more seriously. But I think we need to keep putting pressure on them as well, and saying to William Hague, now you're not rubbing shoulders with Hollywood A-list stars. What are you doing? Because we've heard nothing really from him since the summit.
On this particular show, I can't say so much, but I would just like to say there's already an alliance of people who are inspiring to use the Congo for military and for economic purposes. There's a huge amount of corruption, both from the head of state down. It's like 154 on the corruption list, Transparency International. There's so many problems within Congo, but then it's very much supported by people in the West and other places. Recently, I think in February, there was a whistleblower from Ernst & Young who talked about a gold refinery in Dubai. And these are the ways that the militias, particularly gold is one of the more corruptible minerals because it's easily malleable and changeable. So there's a lot of use of gold by the militias to various refineries, including this Kalati gold refinery in Dubai. And then that comes into our phones and into many other things. It comes into our laptops. these minerals then are fueling a lot of our economy. But that alliance in sense of selfishness or greed, of just tragic greed, which has led to a lot of these problems, should be counteracted, and it's our responsibility in a sense to have an alliance with the good people who are active in Congo, to support them and help them as we can from here, by mobilizing, by lobbying, by campaigning, by raising awareness. The European Union came up with an extremely weak proposed legislation on the use of conflict minerals after the American Dodd-Frank proposal was also seemed not so strong, but actually has had a good effect, or has had a strong effect. Sometimes it's been clumsy. But the European Union could have done so much more. It had a voluntary opt-in. If you wanted to improve your reputation, you could opt in, but there was no compulsion. So there is an effort now to redress that and to strengthen it. And it's these areas that we want to help, because these areas we can help in conjunction with the diaspora, in conjunction with the activists within the country. Thank you.
I think what's really important, and that Masika has, I hope you've seen this for yourself, that there are lots of very brave women like Masika and men who, are part of the solution in Congo. And if there is a top-down and bottom-up approach, that they are supported, they are encouraged, that they can create support. They can also, I think there are ways of creating reporting procedures so that the sense of impunity is eradicated and eroded slowly but surely, with pressure from all of us and from the international community on the top down, so that President Kabila doesn't pass a law to allow himself to change the constitution and allow himself to stand for a third presidency. So if there's a top-down and a bottom-up approach, the solution is there in Congo. They're extraordinary people, many of them, and they just need a bit of support with the pressure from the top down to bring about a profound change and allow them to live their lives in a wonderful country that should be the most sort of richest and beautiful place on earth to live, because it is a paradise that has many minerals and riches and wealth of its own, and it is also, most importantly, it is the heart of Africa. It is in the heart of Africa, and some people say that until the heart of Africa is healed, then the rest of Africa can never kind of fully recover, and so we need to support them in both ways, I think.
Can I just say something? And also, I just want to say the big problem lies with the big companies, the international companies like Apple's, one of them, Barclays is in there, De Beer, and if we start putting pressure on those companies, let's take courage. I take courage. I'm courageous for the Congolese people. Because what's happening in Congo now, we say, it's far away, but it can come here as well. So if we stand up as women, as mothers, to say no, you have to stop. There's no price to pay. There's no price for just to have gold or diamonds or coltan and a mobile. Is it worth it? Sometimes I sleep at night. When I lie down, I don't sleep, I lie down and I think about it. It's just too much. I can't believe that people can sacrifice, because that is a sacrifice. Human, like you see Mama Masika, just for the sake. Because the problem don't lie with the government in Kinshasa, because the government in Kinshasa has been given order not to act. It's simple as that. We can write many reports, we can write many books about it. Even the UN is accomplice, and I've been saying it, even in the parliament here. I've been saying it, I've been denouncing it. And if women, I'm talking about women now, if we are brave enough, come with us. Because men, I don't trust you anymore. I'm sorry. That's how it goes, you know. And I think the future, because when you touch a woman, you touch the future of the country, of a nation. And that's exactly what they're doing. How can you explain that Rwanda invaded my country? I was there. I was a witness. I'm an eyewitness. When they invaded Kisangani and fought Rwanda and Uganda inside Kisangani, pretend to fight just to kill the Congolese people. And Museveni, Kabila, Laurent Kabila, who was the father, so-called the father, took Kabila into court. Museveni into court. Museveni was found guilty by the international courts. And he's supposed to pay $10 billion to Congo. And that thing just went. They never talk about it. You can Google it. So the problem lies with the big companies. And I got all the list. It's available to you if you want them. You can just go into our website and find out about it. It's nothing to do with Kabila. Even Kagame is a big company in UK and America. It has to stop. Full stop. Because I'm sick and tired sitting here every 6 months or 3 months trying to bargain for my own country. It makes me sick. And I'm sick and tired of it. So I'm asking you, please, let's be courageous. Women, these children you see there are your children, the future of a nation. Are we going to carry on doing this, pretending? No. Let's stop pretending. Let's come with the truth. We are voters. I drive a bus. I'm a bus driver. I'm 59 years old. I drive a bus. And I pay my taxes for what? To support Kagame? To kill my people? I said to the parliament here, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not happy about it. So it has to change. And I decided to change it. As a voter, I'm going to change it. So, who's with me? Get up. I'm up. That's brave women who've been raped so many times. Why? For me to have a mobile phone, I can have it in cheaper way, not sacrifice Mama Masika and little Stevie. So come on. Thank you very much for standing with me. Please, boys, talk about it. Tell your neighbor, tell your friends, tell your mother, tell your baby. Tell them what's happening in the Congo. Don't be afraid about it. Because what's happening in the Congo now, it never happened in another country in the world. And it makes me really angry. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any more questions? Yes, okay, one final question from the lady. And also, I just wanted to make a quick point as well about, the judiciary system and the legal system in Congo. I was at a meeting in Parliament last week, and one major charity who was operating on the ground said that there are really, really strong civil society organisations. The problem is they're being stifled. Obviously, you have to remember there is a war in Congo, as I was saying earlier on, and I think because this is miscommunicated a lot in our media, so many people aren't aware that, there is an enemy on the ground occupying Congo, and this is really restricting civil society organisations. So there are great people on the ground, but because of the political and military situation, if these people are too vocal, they're basically killed. Dr. Mukwege was almost assassinated 12 or 18 months ago, and one of the most prominent human rights lawyers in Kinshasa, Shibeya, was assassinated about a year or two ago. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of clarify that as well, why the judicial system is so weak at the moment is the current situation. So yeah, this lady.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share, and thank you for sharing what you have done tonight. Watching Steve and his mother made me really sad. Obviously, what is going on is a programming process, and they have programmed first the mother to hate, and the mother is hating her own children, and this child is learning hate, and there's a lot of anger. He's not alone. A lot of children are learning to hate, and they're learning to hate their own people. It is a big problem. Is there any program to really unprogram them from hating one another? Because the killing and the raping that is going on is also coming from another programming, process that happened elsewhere. And these people were then transported to Congo, and they are acting out their anger. What is there for the people of Africa to unprogram all this anger and hating one another?
Goodness, well, I mean, I don't know. I can only say very briefly, in 6 years, I've not come across a hateful rape victim. I mean, yes, you kind of came across Rachel saying she struggled to love Stevie and felt she hated him sometimes, but that's more a kind of a relationship psychological issue because of the situation of how he was born. I don't know. I think this isn't... I don't know how to... We look after 100 kids whose mothers were all raped. I've never had any kind of reports that they have behavioural issues because, they're kids of mothers who were raped. But the only thing I can say, and I'll leave it here, is that Dr. Mukwege has raised several times his concern about these children and what's going to happen to them when they become adults. Because some of them inadvertently, as you say, will become very angry young, especially men. Because unfortunately, if a man gets a gun in Congo, then all hell breaks loose. And I've always said as well that, if Rwanda's military strategy is a kind of a genocide in Congo, a slow genocide through using rape as a weapon of war, is to, the psychology of war is to be very careful that doesn't backfire on Rwanda. Because if you have lots of mixed race young men who are angry, who know that their parents are probably, Rwandan rebels or Rwandan soldiers, put a gun in that young man's hand who loves his mother, and he's going to go to the neighbouring country for revenge, right? So we've talked about it with Mom, but we've not really got a solution. I don't know, Fiona.
No, what we can give to those children is just a lot of love. That's what we're trying to do, give them love and teach them not to hate, because I don't have hatred towards Rwandans. We welcomed them in my country for many, many years. Even though what they're doing, I don't hate them.
I think it's such a complex, difficult problem, and I think one of the most difficult things and challenges is that if a boy has no father, he has no inheritance, and so he has no identity, and what is his place in society? So that is something that has to be looked at. Otherwise, the only thing for them to do is to go into the forest and join the militia and perpetuate the problem, and become the very thing that everyone is frightened that they will become, which is their father, and repeat the cycle. So for the girls it's different, obviously, and I think that the women who have, when they have their babies, many of them are very devoted to them, but it's often harder for them if the baby is a boy for all the reasons that we know and appreciate. So I think there's no answer to your question, and I think for many people in many communities, they're not at a stage in a way where it's not stable enough that they can start to address these issues, because they're often living in a constant state of crisis. Whether it's finding food, trying to find money for the hospital, schools, clothes. I still don't quite understand how Masika can feed 78 children at the moment. But so it's a very difficult issue and something that has to be looked at, and maybe with leadership from somebody like Dennis McQuaggy, who has seen it for so long in such a broad and complex way. He's somebody who can bring pressure and do something positive.
I think going back to that question of a transitional government, I mean, if you did want to finally have peace in that region one day, you would need somebody who understands the psychology of that region. It's impossible to have a president who doesn't, so who knows, maybe in the next few years, I mean, I really hope that I'm not going to be sitting in a room in 6 years doing another documentary screening about rape. I hope in 6 years that we'll all be doing a documentary screening about the amazing rehabilitation programs and schools. So I don't know if anyone else has any more points or questions, because it's 9:15, so we're quite over schedule, so I wanted to bring the evening to a close. Yeah. So thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for your time and your donations. We will keep you posted via newsletter on how much was raised and on how Masika's doing as well. Okay, and thank you to UPF, thank you to Robin.